for months now, we've been seeing, and you and others have been reporting the troubles on the Labor side over the question of the pace of change to get to net zero by 2050. Now we're seeing this trouble emerging on the other side of politics. It's been my observation that for some months, Scott Morrison, and it's not my observation alone, I'd hasten to add, that Scott Morrison's been moving slowly, ever so slowly, not quite imperceptibly, away from coal, through gas to renewables, and hoping that those recalcitrants, particularly within the National Party, won't really notice what's going on. Well, they have, and they have now. Matt Canavan and Bridget, McKenzie and Barnaby, Joyce, all former ministers. This is quite significant that they're standing up to the Prime Minister, and Matt Canavan's case even acknowledging that he would be prepared to cross the floor to represent the interests of his constituents, as he says. Now, whatever you say else about Matt Canavan, he does understand Central Queensland in particular, and those seats there that the coalition held on to at the 2019 election will be important at the next election, whether it's later this year or next year as well. So this is something of a threat. Whether people crossing the floor is as far as it gets, I'm not sure about that, but it puts pressure not only on Scott Morrison but also on the leader of the National Party as well, because Michael McCormack, because he doesn't have the broader support within, or the depth of support within the National Party that leaders of the Nats in the past have had. So yes, it is a problem, it is a difficulty, and it reminds us that this is an issue for both sides of politics, not just for Labor, who have made heavy weather of it over the past 3, 4, 5 months.
And Jim, on Labor still, the frontbencher Christina Keneally, she's about to deliver a speech to the National Press Club. We're hearing there'll be some sort of news out of that. Of course, we'll watch it closely and bring our viewers any pertinent details from that speech. What are you expecting?
Well, look, this is and ought to be a vulnerability for the government. The question that she's now the Shadow Minister for Government Accountability, I think is the particular term, and this should be fertile field, not just sports rorts, and sports rorts was a rort. There's absolutely no doubt about it. I think she's going to focus on some of the other schemes that the government has, community development schemes, something like $2 billion, where that is by invitation program. So it's vulnerable to rorting in a very, very easy way. This ought to be an area where people, citizens, voters ought to be concerned. It's our money, taxpayers' money, that's being used in this particular way. Despite all these things that have been going on with sports rorts and so on, did cost Bridget McKenzie her job, but by and large, with things like the Leppington Triangle, what was it, paying 30 times as much or 10 times as much for that piece of land around the new Western Sydney airport. There hasn't been a lot of conversation about that, partly because there's been so much focus, and understandably so, on response to and the COVID-19 pandemic. But if anyone can score goals here, I suspect Christina Keneally may well be the person within Labor's ranks to do it.
We'll be watching closely. Jim Middleton, thanks for your time.
My pleasure, Ash, as always.